wanna see good news. You don't see on regular TV. From another perspective, something relative to your needs. And we gonna have deep subjects, and we gonna turn the lens. And there's no topic we won't skip. So please don't miss weekly. Tune in to weekly to check in. Weekly check in. Weekly check in. Weekly check in. Tune in to weekly. Tune in. Check in. Weekly check in.
As everything structures and infrastructures are shifting in the world, so is the world of entertainment, or maybe not. And we are going to talk about the case of Anita Baker. Okay, Anita Baker is a 1980s, 90s R&B superstar who has sold millions of records, who is well respected throughout all of entertainment, announced on Twitter that she was fighting for her masters. And then that began a whole bunch of conversation about other artists that also have been fighting for their masters and how the music industry is set up and designed in these contracts. But before we get into the details of Anita Baker's case, the first question I want to put out there, and I've been asking myself this, asking people this forever, is what makes music so important that it is so controlled the way that it has been?
I think music is so important and so controlled the way it has been because as long as you can remember, before there was TV, of course, there was radio. And even before there was radio, that's basically the way a lot of slaves communicate each other, was through what? Music and in song. So this is something that has been literally connected to the Black experience in regards to getting our message across for the longest. And I think once the corporate entities figured out how to get their messages out through us, that's why it became so important in, the early 90s when hip hop really got corporatized and went from being like a boutique, type music to being like, because now rap is and hip hop is pop music now. You know what I mean? Like it's the biggest money making music genre out right now. So you can no longer say that it's not like pop music. It sells more than rock, sells more than I think Taylor Swift is the only one who sells more than most hip hop acts, but most hip hop acts are, dominating the charts. So it's been so important because not only is it the way to get a direct message to people, and it's a message that can be controlled now. And so now, since it's a message that can be controlled, like all the way going back to like we talk about, they used to call it race music back then, right? They called it race music. And then when they had race music, if they wanted the kids, remember how they would want the kids to hear a certain thing, they would take a record from Aretha Franklin and have Pat Boone re-sing it for the white kids. So one, it's another reason that, Black folks have always pushed the culture in this country. And because we have always pushed the culture, it's so important for other people to have their hands in that pot of our music and to control it. Because if we really controlled it, we wouldn't only control the culture, we would actually control a lot of our own economics.
Yeah, so I would like to take it like even deeper or further back, right? So if we think in a social science framework, what establishes a civilization? There's 7 things that establish a civilization. And one of the things that establishes civilization is their own music, having their own language and having their own music. And what we know, as Dame has pointed out to us, that Black African Americans in particular, their language or their broken English turned into genres of music, not just hip hop. We're talking about country music. We're talking about rock. We're talking about rap. We're talking about jazz, right? And so these art forms have come not only just from our ability to communicate, but our suffering and our pain. There's a book that I made sure that I had on my desk to show you guys. It's called Why Culture Matters Most. And as Dame has pointed out, if you can control someone's culture, you can control who they are. And that is why it's so important. It's the idea of how do I control the culture in a capitalistic system that allows me to monetize culture, because that's the biggest piece of it. It's not just controlling it, it's being able to monetize it and monetize it for the white man's benefit.
Okay, yeah, that's I'm still thinking about it. I do know this, that like both of you said, you had excellent points about how music is pretty much the first medium to be commodified. We're just going to situate this in the United States, to be commodified and sold the way that it has. Before there were record players, before there was sheet music. And what we know is that a lot of this music and the compositions were composed by enslaved Black folk, but sold in the name of white folk. So this has been going on for a very long time, as well as the main, I think there's like some connective tissue as well in terms of power and control. And I like what you said in terms of you control the culture, you control how people think about each other or think who they are. But also, if we talk about plantation life or life, music, and having the Black people perform for you or perform for the people was something that was a mainstay in plantation life in colonial America. So there's also this connection of being over still these cultural productions. And I know there's a lot more into, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and with that being said, I watched Get On Up on Netflix this week, and it's the James Brown story, and I love there's a scene in there where the white guy from Cincinnati is trying to do the mashed potato, and James Brown says to him, or Bozeman's character, Bozeman playing James Brown, goes, well, what are you doing? He was like, this is the mashed potato. He said, that ain't the mashed potato, and he's like, that's the point. You're the show, and it's called show business. You're the show and I'm the business. And James Brown was like, yeah, that's what you think. You think I'm the show and you're the business. But what you don't understand is that since I am the show, I'm going to learn the business and I'm going to outsmart you. And that has been the history in many ways of Black artists is figuring out how to outsmart them in the business. And when we can't outsmart them and get in contracts or are handcuffed, how do we then use our collective power like Anita Baker has done by going to social media and saying, hey, listen, we've seen this saga before, and they're trying to do the same thing that they've done to previous artists to me.
All right, so let's break down these details with Anita Baker. Is that she streamed and asked all of her fans to stop buying and or streaming her music on major streaming platforms because she was in the battle of fighting for her masters. In subsequent days, she began to explain to people who responded to her ask about further why it was important to do so, and how unfairly or poorly artists such as herself and most artists have been paid or underpaid or not paid or gypped. So Dame and I were talking about this. Could you break some of her things down? So one of the claims she made was streaming, about the inequities or the pay in streaming.
Terrible. I hate it. The checks I get from my streaming is so ridiculous. It's so trash. It's so terrible. All right, so I can give you an actual anecdote about how bad streaming is for us, just to give y'all kind of a scale of how terrible it is. I won't use the exact artist because it's really like the amount of money they made, so I don't want to put that business out there, but I can say the song that they had was equivalent to the Bruno Mars record, Uptown Funk. The song that they had was about that big. It's about equivalent to that song. It was about that big, and it had been that big for about 2 years, and they got a check from Spotify. And now y'all remember how big Uptown Funk was, right?
Yeah.
So imagine how much Uptown Funk was, played in streaming platforms and all that. And this Spotify sent a check for $2,500 to this artist for a song that big. And that was because, and as Anita broke down in her Twitter, you get 1/3 of a penny for each stream. 1/3 of a penny for each stream. And after that, the label will still come and take a chunk out for their publishing licensings, mechanical license and master license, which is like a whole other conversation to get into, because so since they do all that, even after that 1/3 of a penny, you have accumulated all of these streams, you still got people coming to take another piece of that 1/3 of a penny before it gets to you and gets in your pockets. So that's why I'm totally against streaming. The only streaming service that gives you almost something that's feasible is Tidal. That's about the only streaming service that gives you more than like 1/3 of a penny for your streams.
Right, because from what I understand, it was 1/3 of a penny that the company got. And then they got their cut, and then they gave whatever was left to the artist. So the artist doesn't even get 1/3 of a penny.
Yes.
And she also said something that blew my mind. It was, you can explain it better, but it's something like a record company creates a dummy company to steal off of the record company.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm saying that right. Explain that.
Yeah. No. So basically, what happens is there's a few things. And just to give y'all a few examples, there's some antiquated things that they keep in contracts to be able to shave and hustle money off of artists. Like, for example, when I had my deal with Sony in 2005, there was a clause in there that said 10% of your merchandise will be broken upon shipment, because they would calculate how many of your vinyl records could possibly be broken, in shipping. We wasn't still dealing in vinyl records in 2005, but guess what? That clause is still in a bunch of contracts until this day, because you can always point to that and you can manipulate that number to whatever you want to shave off whatever royalties you want to shave off, because it is in the contract. So you can say, oh, well, according to this, I can shave off this much because in the contract it says for loss, whatever the label loses. So they can use that for their bottom line. So that's one thing, one part of it. And another part, you remember, y'all remember the early 90s when they had hella bootlegs everywhere, where everybody was in front of the Bonds and all that before people had their own CD burners, but they had these elaborate duplicates of artwork. It's the same artwork, but the words are a little fuzzy, like they use a different machine.
Or they're not there.
Yeah, or they're not there. So what was happening was, I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you remember Macola. For those who grew up in LA in the early 90s, Macola put out a bunch of the hip hop records, like early NWA records with Macola.
Okay.
Yeah, like that era.
On Crenshaw.
Yes. That's it. Mm-hmm. So places like Macola would manufacture records for the big labels that weren't under the big labels manufacturing company. So say Columbia Records got their own pressing plant. Columbia Records would go find a Macola and be like, look, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars to make this version of our record, because that's not going to be in our inventory. So you could sell that and we could pocket all of that money. And then we don't have to pay the artists off of these bootlegs, right? And then the same thing happened when the CD era came. Like they were actually having pressing plants press up, like soon as the JPEG for the artwork came out, they was going right to those companies, and that's why the bootlegs were coming out at the same time. Because if you really think about it, how could the bootleg come out at the same time?
Better and looked good.
It looked good at the same time without, because the labels were going to these places saying, "Here, we're gonna pay you this much to make it, and you bring us the money back, and then we get to pocket this." So what she was saying was they were basically putting up their own fake mom and pops to bootleg these records, so artists wouldn't be able to, because like even if I go into your books, because artists in our contract also, it says we have a right to go to the label and ask to look in their books. But if I go to look in your books, that's not going to be in the books. So how can I calculate all this money that I'm missing from over here? Because, and they said, oh no, that's all, y'all lost a lot of money on those bootleggers. Because remember when Napster hit, iTunes hit and all that, they was talking about how much money the music business was losing to Napster, iTunes, and bootleggers. But at the same time, if you go back and look fiscally, then record labels were making some of the highest profit margins they had ever made in those years, that they were claiming to be losing so much money when the new model was coming in.
Wow.
Yeah, and so Kanye, this is racial capitalism. It's a theory that's established by Cedric Robinson, and he's a black economist. And what Cedric Robinson says when it comes to racial capitalism, that racial capitalism is all about the extracting of social and economic value from those that are not white to then maximize that value in a capitalist system. And it's also about the legitimizing of such an extraction. So that's where we are right now, right? Because and the reason I say that this is a mirror image of racial capitalism is because even once Black people created their own record labels, they still held you up in distribution. So even though you can, although you can create your own record label and be able to, and quote unquote, own your masters in your own record label, you still have to get to distribution. You still got to go to Sony. You still got to go to Columbia then to distribute, right? And so this idea of extraction, right? This is when Black folks talk about the layers of racism in this country, we are talking about these types of structures. This is systematic racism at its best. And I would even argue that it's institutional racism, because the way that record labels were established, they were established with racial extraction in mind.
Well, yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I'm listening. This is good.
Yeah, and to speak further to that point, it's kind of a point that I made to you yesterday, Kanye, when we were talking. You think about some of our biggest artists in the industry with the biggest amounts of money. You talking about Beyonce, Jay-Z, Master P, Cash Money, all those guys who were making hand over fist. As big as they were, none of them have access, and none of them have been able to own the distribution arm of music, the distribution arm of film and television. So it's no matter what you do, to Sharice's point, there's still a point where there's a gatekeeper for us. Like at some point, you still have a gatekeeper. Like you could be a billionaire and you still not really 100% independent, because there always has to be another entity to distribute that for you. And that's the one place that we have not been able to get into. That's the one place we have not been able to knock down and make any headway in, even with, all the distribution. Like you can distribute, like the three of us can make a record right now and I could put it up and distribute it in probably about 10 minutes. But at all of those companies, we don't own those. We don't own the CD Babies. We don't own the TuneCores. We don't own those. So even in that, there's a couple of Black owned distributors, but even those Black owned distributors have been backed by white dollars.
And another thing is that those who have had a level of financial success in the game have then had to have become gatekeepers of other artists, which is what Kanye West was talking about, his slave contracts. And when Jay-Z used, Kanye West's masters in order to broker a deal so he could be okay in the industry as well. So there's this, there's this kind of like, in this system of exploitation, it's kind of like navigating how less of exploited that you can be. And I also want to say this to both of your points. In the 50s and 60s, there was a height of independently owned Black music companies, right? And so there was this moment where, because it's just like what happened with hip hop. When MTV didn't want to play hip hop and everything, MTV didn't want to play Black music.
Right.
They forced Michael Jackson, and they were like, damn, we didn't even know that it would make this much money, right? So this is something that happened before, when we're talking about the 50s and 60s, and Black artists had to rely on the Chitlin circuit in order to tour and sell. And when the powers that be looked into that market and realized that they were making hand over fists, then they began to dismantle it. And so this is why during that era, they talk about these mysterious deaths that are going on with these artists who wanted to have their own companies or were challenging these groups that were holding really Black music hostage, right? So
not mysterious deaths back then. I mean, we could talk about Prince. I mean, it's not, to me, it's non-coincidental that I fight you for 7 years for my masters, and then as soon as I secure my masters, then I'm dead. Right. Like that. So when we're talking about mysterious deaths, I think that's still at play here. You know what I'm saying? So for me, this is our wake-up call about, are we going to be serious about creating our own economic systems that are sustainable, right? Are we going to decide that we are okay not being in the larger economic system to create our own, right? When last week we had conversations about Asian groups versus Black groups. And that to me is what Asian groups have over Black folks. Is they've been okay with saying, I'll take less of a smaller pie if it means that all of us get a piece, where I don't feel like we have come to that same recognition that, yes, it may not be as big as theirs, but I would prefer to take this money and circulate it here versus giving them a piece of what my pie is.
I don't know about that. I would say this. I would say that the entering into the capitalistic market has been very different between Asians and Black folks in the United States. But let's take, for example, like Asian banks in the United States are backed by or banks are backed by banks in Asia.
Yeah.
Who gonna back our banks when the US, messes with our money? Nobody. That's why we really don't have that many. We have to play in the system and rely on the system in order to enfranchise ourselves. And that has been the dilemma that has part of in terms of the financial aspect of it.
And I don't disagree with that. I guess my point is that I don't feel as a community, we've come to a consensus about really taking our dollars out of the other system, or just keeping enough in there to continue to court the system is my point. I think amongst us in our community, we've argued back and forth about what's the best strategy because this system has controlled us in many ways economically. I think there's consistently a fight when we don't really have a consensus. And I think that they continue to highlight that the fact that we do have this fight against one another, or that we are still trying to come together collectively to decide what's the best strategy. And I think oftentimes as a community, we get distracted by them pitting us against one another versus keeping in mind we are consistently looking for the best strategy.
Well, I would say, I think we're at a place is like all things or most of what we have has been exhausted. There have been so many ways we've attempted to enter into the market and flip stuff and flip stuff and flip stuff. I think we're at a crossroads where we've exhausted all of these creative ideas to the, in these sophisticated and very rogue ways we've been taken out of it. So I think we're at this point where, like, what is it that we need to do? Because we've worked together, we've had all of these things, but they've been dismantled. So I guess that to add to your point is well taken, and I do agree. But how do you do that right now in the state that we are in, and particularly, I would say, within the music industry, because the music industry is still, like, when we said this before, when the panoramic shut the world down, right? It was DJ Nice with DJ Nice.
D Nice saved the world.
D Nice, first D Nice saved the world in the verses, right?
And verses, which we're having one tonight, right? Which is why my parents flew in. They flew in so they could listen to the Isley Brothers, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Okay, all right. It's about to be 40 million babies made tonight. Okay,
right.
Record. So so the thing is that, and so how do we pivot or shift differently, knowing what we know and have been through what we've been through? What do we need to do differently?
I think I think we have to make a decision, like how you said, we've tried to exhaust every version of really separating ourselves and being independent. We've tried that. And even then, because what happened was, even with the Master P's of the world, what they'll do is, if they can't get you to sign on, they'll sign your competition and try to bury you. And they can, and the reason they can bury you often, they can bury you with resources, because they have resources that we don't have. So what they would do is, like, okay, if you're not going to sign with us, we're going to make sure, we'll tell them, you're not going to get our next big release, which is 50 Cent. If you put this independent artist, if you put Wild Bunch in your stores right now and they not signed because we trying to sign them, you're not going to get our next 3 big releases. Mm-hmm. I can't compete with that. You know what I mean? So now I'm going to be shut down from all the mom and pop stores that I've been going to, because they like, well, that's our bread and butter, is getting the big releases early, getting the certain amount of units that we get from those big releases. Like, it's a whole other thing when it comes, to those things. So now you have it where they're doing it a different way now with social media, because at first, remember, artists was eating using social media. Now they changed it. Sponsored. You have to pay to be getting those looks that we were getting for free, because if you just got on and hustled early enough in the morning and sent it to enough people, you would see you would be all over everybody's timeline. Now you could only be on like 10% of your own timeline. And then once you're only on 10% of your own timeline, you have to pay to boost up that. So even that tool is starting to be taken from us because they added that to Instagram and they added it to Facebook. So now the algorithm kills off a lot of the stuff that independent artists were doing. And now you even have to work 10 times harder, even to your point and to Dr. Sharice's point about, you know, when we finally figured out how to do it, smack it up, flip it, rub it down, they moved the goalposts.
Oh no.
You know what I'm saying? They moved the goalposts and they changed the rules on it. So then we have to go back into survival mode again and figure out how to do it. And, you know, going back to Anita, not only just Anita, but a lot of artists. And Anita's case is a very curious case because I don't even know why she's fighting, because she's at a place where she actually like went through the life of her contract, which rarely ever happens. She went through the life of her contract, and I know she's recouped through the life of her contract. So there should not even be a fight, but that goes more to what you guys were talking about in regard to the power structure, because it's on some, oh, well, yeah, we don't care. So what? It's ours. You know what I mean? And that's what it is a lot of times in the music industry. It's a lot of bully shit. You know, like I've been lucky to get in and out of certain deals because, you know, one, I had a great lawyer and I learned this business really, really early. So I knew like, okay, these are the things that I'm going to give up to not be stuck in contracts for the rest of my life. Like I'll give up $50,000 to take off a couple extra years. You know what I mean? I'll give up certain concessions so you won't take none of my publishing. You know what I mean? Like, so, but those are the things a lot of artists get into and don't know. So you just see that big number. Oh, y'all gonna give me $500,000? Yeah, this $500,000 comes with this. You know, the $500,000 and the way they use the word recoupment, they can add and tack anything they want to on it. And I've seen them take money from one artist and use it for another artist, and the other artist has to recoup it. Like, oh,
Right.
we don't have enough money to, we don't have enough money to put them on tour. Pull that from their budget and send that over there, and we send it over there, but they have to recoup it. So if there's an artist that's doing well and they, you know, the management is cool with the label, that person is not going to have such a high recoup as a person that, you know, label ain't really messing with, and we basically using them for a tax write-off. So we just gonna keep pulling from their budget, and then when they ask for something for themselves, like, yo, we need to go on tour, they're gonna say, oh, you ain't got no money left, you spent all your money. It's wild.
But Dame, I guess, so to that point, or to the larger point about why Anita makes perfect sense, because Anita, what she said was, I'm retiring. I'm getting out of the game, right? And so by her getting out of the game, or her retiring, what she has done now is said that she went on tour right before we shut down. She went on tour. So, and as you know, in the industry yourself, that's where you make most of your money, is when you go on tour and you're able to then get that appearance check. It's essentially what I call it, right? Is that you're able to get this appearance check. Well, she shuts this down. So why now a fight? Because I'm going to stop appearing for life now, and I got to figure out a way to get a better cut on my stream, because now that I've gone back on tour, there's no album to go to buy. Everybody's going to go stream what I just stopped doing a tour over.
Yeah.
And if you go back and dig at this and look at it even more, her streams jumped significantly on the platforms after she finished the tour. So why now? Why is it important? Because I need to find a way to get a cut from what they're now streaming. My streams have gone up considerably, yet the check is not that much bigger, and now we have a real problem. And if that problem is surrounding my masters, the one piece I can still get a piece of, because to your point, Dame, I'm out of my contract and I should have had access to these masters, because I'm not going to get access to distribution. I'm not going to get access to the streaming, but what I can have access to per my contract is my masters. So that's why now, and that's why in this moment, and let's also be clear, she did some negotiation behind the scenes before she went to social media. It wasn't like she tried to deal with the record label and said, look, hey, my numbers have gone up. What can we do? Oh, so now y'all want to play hardball? I know how to play too.
That's a really good point that you brought up, is that because she's not touring, because a lot of artists said, all right, well, if I'm not making money off of the records, at the very least I can make money off of touring. Right. And so with the pandemic happening, and then, but this is not her case, but a lot of artists are on that OnlyFans pages popping.
Yep.
Right. Because they cannot tour anymore. How How does this issue with Anita Baker, if it does, tie to all of these artists liquidating their masters, like Lil Wayne selling his masters and Nicki Minaj's masters, and I think some of Drake's stuff? Like,
Yeah.
is there some type of tie that's going on? Can you explain that?
Yeah, there is a correlation. So if you think about it and you just look at it, let's try to look at it from a strictly economic standpoint, right? If you have your masters and you are at a place where you say, okay, I probably have these 5 songs that are worth a ton, but I got the rest of this whole catalog that's probably not worth as much. But if I can package these like 10 great hit records I got with these 40 to 50 kind of mediocre records, or, you know, records that didn't do much, and I could turn this into money that'll last my whole family for a lifetime, and I can cash out now. Why wouldn't you do that? Especially when, as time goes, those royalty checks get smaller, the songs get less popular, they get less use. And especially with a lot of hip hop records, they don't have the same shelf life as a Motown My Girl. They don't have the same shelf life as, you know, a lot of those Smokey Robinson classics where they still get used today. So you think about it, like the Lil Wayne record, Let It Rock, was a huge record when it came out. Huge record. Let It Rock is not getting played a lot no more. You're not going to hear that record at parties again. You don't really hear that record on TV shows. And that's where the real money is, like getting your song synced to TV shows and movies and film and stuff like that. So if I can take these records and I can monetize it to its highest value, almost like I'm at this is probably like the highest value that my music will have. After this, it's going to do nothing but drop. Now is the time for me to take it. And then a lot of these cats, what they're doing is, and I know this is another conversation, but they're doing that. They're getting $100-200 million and they're converting like 50 million of it into Bitcoin. You know what I mean? So they're finding, so what they're doing is, because I think that's one of the reasons that Jay-Z actually sold Tidal. Same thing. He sold Tidal because they say he wants to turn a lot of that Tidal money into Bitcoin. And those guys gonna take that Bitcoin, and if you're a billionaire like that and you could turn 2 million into Bitcoin, you could pull that money right out immediately. Like you could pull your profit out damn near immediately. So that's the other play that's going on. But, you know, also just the fact that a lot of times, like say Lil Wayne, you know, God forbid, passes away, a lot of times that music reverts to the label, not him and his family. But if he sells his master right now while he's at the height, and he sells that publishing, that money is his, and that money belongs to him and his family, and they have it money in hand. Because we have seen, even with wills, as you've seen with Aretha Franklin's estate, shit gets tricky when you don't have money in hand, and they got to roll out and figure out those royalties from the labels, figure out those assets, and figure out all those other things. But if I can have the money in hand that belongs to me, that I can hold, that'll be for me and my family. I think that's why you see, because like you said, L.A. Reid did it, and L.A. Reid is one of the smartest businessmen. So once he did it, I was like, oh, something else is up down the line. You know what I mean? Like when you see people like that smart, like L.A. Reid doing it and Babyface doing it, and I think Timberland did it, I'm like, okay, so they see something else down the line. But like I said, it's probably like, working the stock. Like we probably see at this moment, this is probably going to be the most that my catalog is worth. So let me get the most worth out of it, and I could take what I pull out of it, and I can invest my own money my own way, as opposed to just trying to depend on these labels who change the rules whenever they feel like it, who change royalty rates whenever they feel like it, who can decide what they want to pay you and hide what they don't want to pay you. It's like so many factors that go into it, but these are the reasons that I speculate that they were going to make these moves.
And Dame, if I'm correct, didn't L.A. Reid pass away?
No.
Okay, so L.A. Reid did pass away.
It was
Who passed
Harrell.
away?
Harrell.
Andre Harrell, yeah.
Harrell, yeah.
Andre Harrell. Okay.
And then
I get them confused. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's no problem. I mean, people have been dropping like flies left and right. So I mean, it comes with the territory. I also want to say too, as well, I even think like the music industry. So when I was hard working as an entertainment reporter, I would always say, like, now I understand how artists are controlled. What I saw let's talk about, this is me in the 90s, in the early 2000s, it was drug, sex, and rock and roll. A lot of drugs, a whole lot of orgies, and a whole lot of alcohol, to where you create this microcosm of a world that they exist in it. And when they step out, they feel so awkward that they'll go back into this world. And so they are not a full mind embody in order to properly negotiate the contracts. This is something that has been, this is something, but now, because, and I'm saying this because I think maybe a week or two, Method Man, there was an interview with Method Man, and he was talking about
how they getting all this money. Yep.
Like, how are they getting all this money? And I think that is because they have it, there's still sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but the hoe is the artist. A lot of these artists, this is just, I'm gonna say it, a lot of these artists are intertwined with these very interesting, I would say, sexual arrangements and things like that that are going on, because just as the hip hop artist, or what do they say, the person who used to talk about selling drugs, now they talk about taking drugs. They used to talk about, you know what I'm saying, bagging chicks, and now they the people get bagged, you know, boys and girls. So I think there's also this really, and this is something that is documented, where hip hop, or just the music industry, but more in particular hip hop, or this hip hop R&B genre, intersects with the porn industry or the sex working industry. And so in a lot of ways, these artists are living both of them, or doing it in order to garner contracts, or so on and so forth. Mm-hmm.
Well, I can speak to that. You know, like I said, I can't get into specifics, but being in this business as long as I've been in this business professionally since 2005, and I have seen some things, and I got to be a fly on the wall in a lot of places that I probably wouldn't have been able to be. You know, I've had access to places and people that I probably, like, I'm still blown away to this day that I was able to be in certain rooms and see certain things. But to your point, and I tell people this all the time, especially new artists that I'm talking to, new artists that I'm consulting for and dealing with. Excuse me. You often hear the term sell your soul to the devil. And I wanted to explain to them, I said, let me tell you something. That is real, but sell your soul to the devil doesn't look the way it looks on TV. It's not like the devil comes, he pulls out a contract and say, you know, sign in blood to sell your soul. No, what they do is they find the thing that means the most to you. And if they can get you to turn on that thing that means the most to you, they really try to, because it happened to me. They try to find your moral center. And if they can get you to go against your moral center, they know they can control anything in your life, because they got you to be against what you are foundationally accustomed to. So for me, you know, for one person, it'll be like, I don't drink alcohol. The whole thing is they're going to try to get you to drink alcohol. I don't drink. So the whole aim is going to be to try to get you to drink. Once they know they got you to drink, they're like, cool, we got him, because we can control him now, because we got him to go against the one thing that he would never do. So for me, that was family. And, you know, some people know my band is mostly my family and my best friend from high school. So they would come to me on some like, look, you really the brains behind it all. You the man, cut your family out and we'll give you this amount of dollars and we'll take you this and I was like, yeah, I can't do that. Because I wouldn't do that. Those same executives who were picking me up in limos, taking me to private parties, all of a sudden I see them in the hall, they act like they don't know me, because they realize I'm not one of the ones that you can control like that. But then I seen other people fall for the banana in the tailpipe and, you know, do the one thing that they're against. Like if you have somebody who's like super faithful to their wife, you had these execs like trying to get them prostitutes in the room, trying to, when we on tour, and we gonna get these chicks, and you know, and if they can finally get them to go against that, if they came into the business as a super faithful husband, they can get them to go against that. They really know they got them. So to your point, Kaya, it is very incestuous and crazy like that in regards to like control, right? Mm-hmm. It's a lot of things that are used and utilized for control, because once they get that and they get that control, they use that control to go into your career, into your next contract, and into your, you know, your branding and into your imaging. Like it's so far reaching. So like I literally have this conversation with almost every new artist that I consult with. Like, this is what it looks like. This is how it's going to come, and just try to pay attention to it.
And there's two more ingredients to this component in terms of who floods the industry, or the support system that floods the industry, in order to kind of facilitate these constant situations where you can be compromised, are predators. They hire predators, and they hire yes men and yes women. I can tell you for a fact, like you said, because I'm not going to reveal name, but I know for a fact of somebody who was a rapist that I went to school with. I went to 3 schools, so I'm not going to say I went to school with, and currently right now is a top person in music. Okay. And so the only way that this person could have climbed up into that is it's because of his history of being a predator, because who hired him was a predator, right? A known predator in the industry, right? So, I mean, that's another thing. And I was speaking to somebody and they were, being from Los Angeles, a lot of us are exposed to the business, right? Or know somebody in the business. My last question is that, do you think the industry is going through a shift? What do you think the industry is going to look like on the other side? So we can give people insight, on how to negotiate or navigate if they want to go in it or be in it, or what does it need to be?
I think we are going into a place in a space. I'm sorry. I think we are going to a place in a space in a spot where you are actually going to see a lot more of artists taking their own ownership of their careers and literally going straight to these online distribution companies and online distribution centers, and just figuring out how to brand themselves and how to stay independent. Because you've seen so many successful versions of that with people like Chance the Rapper, who was like, I don't care. I'm not signed. I don't need a label. You know what I mean? But Chance the Rapper kind of has, he had a well-to-do family, so they were able to put money behind him, and he didn't need that. You know what I mean? And a lot of times now people are figuring out you can kind of do what Chance the Rapper did if you have not a lot of money, but if you save a little of your change and start advertising the right way and figuring out these algorithms, you can really hustle the game up and build your own audience and build your own branding, build your own touring. Like when Method Man was talking about how these artists getting money, a lot of them get on and get big before a label even sees them. By the time a label sees them, these young kids have been touring already. They are in control of their own merchandising, which is a huge part, because sometimes you can make more money off of t-shirts. Like when we was on tour, we wanted to sell hoodies more than we wanted to sell the CDs, right? Because you can sell the CDs for $5, but we selling that hoodie for $40. And if you sell enough of those, that's our lunch money for 2 more cities. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of these artists are in charge, are in holding on to those things that we didn't know about, that we weren't taught about, and they're doing it. So by the time a label gets to them, the label has to pay them stupid money to stop making their own money. And I think you're going to start to see more and more of that, because the labels are also getting lazy, because they don't want to develop artists. They don't want to develop talent. They don't really want to go out and try to mold an artist and teach them how to speak in interviews and teach them, like, all the stuff that we used to see and that we used to do. Labels are super lazy and they don't want to do that no more. And a lot of these A&Rs don't even know how to do that, to be honest, because they haven't been brought up and haven't been trained that way. So you're going to see a lot more producer driven artists, like producers who are finding, molding, and doing all the stuff the labels used to do. And they'll probably take them to the labels after they got it all done, set. And even then, like I say, by the time you go to a label now, it's like, y'all have to pay us to stop making the money that we're making. So
and so it's funny, Kanye. So there's a few points for me that this hits on, right? So when I was younger, had a contract with Disney very earlier on in my life, and my parents, there was a grace period or a time for them to pull out of the contract. And they decided to pull out of the contract. And growing up, I was really frustrated with that, because I felt like, I had the talent, I had the look, I had all of the things. And this is a history in my family. My grandfather was given a contract to sing with the San Francisco Opera. And he had 7 boys at home and decided that he wasn't going to participate, and he pulled out. And so there's a history of this in my family where there are musicians. Rockin' Robin, my great uncle wrote Rockin' Robin, right?
Oh wow.
And was taken basically for the masters for that song, and not given credit for the songwriting of that song, because he signed a contract and got done in. And it kind of plays out in our family history as to why people are so wary of the industry. But I say that, and I'm laying that as a foundation, because to Dame's point, what I think is that what I think the shift is that we are not going to see people be as afraid of the industry anymore. I think that's what, to me, is where we're seeing the shift, is like, okay, yes, I know the boogeyman may be here. So because the boogeyman can be here, here, and here, and I'm far more open-eyed about this being a business and not just my talent, right? how do I navigate this? And so to me, that's where I see a shift, is that we went through a phase, I think, as Black people, where a lot of us were scared of the industry. A lot of us were, I put my hands up. I don't want to deal with that. There's the devil there, right, Kaya? There's this devil and I don't really know what this devil looks like. And some people have told me the devil is the contract. Some people have told me the devil is the distribution. Some people have told me the devil is the X, Y, all of these different things. And so what I think what we're going to see right now is a true shift in the artists not being afraid of the industry. And we're seeing that manifest. Who's the young lady? Her, right? Her out of Vallejo is an example of not being afraid of the industry, right? You're not going to over-sexualize me. I don't care how much you want to over-sexualize me. You're not going to do it. What's the other young lady that wears black and white? I can't think of her name. Janelle Monáe, right? So for me, what I see in amongst the new artists is this idea of, I'm not scared of the industry. I understand that there's going to be some work I may have to do, or some things that I may not enjoy that previous artists have enjoyed, but I'm okay with that, because I'm no longer scared of the industry, and I'm going to find a way to make this work and get my music out the way that I want to do it.
So my take on it is that I think what is going to happen in the music industry is what is happening in the TV film industry. You're going to see, you already see more global artists being promoted in the industry, especially like this K-pop, which is basically Koreans jacket, R&B and hip hop.
90s
you know
R&B.
90s R&B, right? 90s pop.
Yep.
In hip hop. And it is going to begin to flood what we consider our, domestic market. So that's what I think. And it's going to be really interesting to see how everything plays out, because in my opinion, Her is an exception. Janelle Monáe is an exception, but they keep, but a lot of these artists, even though they come with, a fan base and a following, saying that they're an artist is quite debatable. You know what I'm saying?
We use that term loosely.
Yeah, we using that real loosely. It's some trash ass stuff that's going on. That's also, I think, what we're going to see in this shift, because you always have to have kind of like, you have to fall off the cliff or have like this fall in order.
Well, yeah, we are in the hairband years of hip hop and R&B, and that's what I say. Like, how you have like where rock got so ridiculous, so full of excess, and it turned into like the hairband, ridiculous hair and ridiculous outfits, and then it became like a parody of itself. Mm-hmm. I think that's the place that we're getting to in hip hop. It's like I feel like this is the hip hop's hairband era, but it does, because of that, after hairband came grunge, where they broke the music back down, and it got back down to straight, raw, stripped down rock, 3 kids in a garage. And I think that's what you're going to see now. You're going to see us go back to like real R&B, real stripped down soulful music, because once it gets to the ridiculousness of that, it breeds the contempt of that parody. And you start the pushback on that is a return to the roots of it, to try to get it
and
back.
We are seeing that, right? We are already seeing that pushback, right? We're already seeing, right? I think to me, we're on the other side of the, if we're in the hair, era, we're seeing the downside of that, right? And I say that because I think Soulja Boy and all of those were at the height of that, of that ridiculousness era, and we're now on the other side of that, right? I think that's why you see Kendrick Lamar becoming more popular in this depth. So to Dame's point, I feel like if we're talking about calculus and we're talking about the curve, right? I feel like we're on the other side of that curve and we're coming back down.
Absolutely.
Right. I think there's a slew of artists that are already producing really great music. They just don't have that mainstream exposure. So there is going to have to be, there is going to be a push. Mm-hmm. So I think that's because the people demand it. And if we look at this from a hegemonic perspective, from a hegemonic perspective, it's like you have a status quo. And in order for the status quo to maintain its power, there must be some negotiation. It can't be business as usual. So that's what's going to happen, because we're pivoting. So the power that be is like, oh shit, that's why you had all these corporations like, we are with Black people. Black lives.
Right.
Because they know if they can roll, they get rolled on. Go ahead.
Right. Again, today, like the height of it, I was just thinking about it, even in cinema. Like, if you guys remember Brown Sugar, the movie Brown Sugar? To me, that's when we were at the height of this like headbanger area, right? Where, the hip hop Dalmatians, right? It was a parody. It was a complete parody.
Well, you know what's funny? I remember when the hip hop Dalmatians came out, and I actually started seeing artists that were really like that. But even before that, me and my brother sat down, and I was like, I remember when the movie Bamboozle came out, and I was like, this is the worst Spike Lee movie ever. I don't understand it. I don't get it. And then 10 years later, when I was seeing Bamboozle happen in real life, me and my brothers literally jumped on the phone with each other, like, oh shit, we get it now.
And that's my favorite Spike Lee movie. Bamboozled is my favorite Spike.
Look, and when it came out, I'm like, yo, this is trash. I don't get it.
He got shitted on for that movie.
It was prophetic. It was so prophetic. Like, I was like, my God, this is what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. Like, when we started to see that, again, we started to see it become a parody of itself. And now we, like you said, Sharice, we are getting on the other side of that. And that's why you're seeing not only are the Kendrick Lamars getting pushed, but like the Ill Camilles of the world who probably would have never got burned, never been heard. J. Cole's, like, they become this new underground mainstream. Mm-hmm. And that's what's starting to happen.
And this is how somebody like a Jasmine Sullivan now is like
be elevated.
Because like 10 years ago, like her voice sound old. Dude, there's no material for her voice.
Right. Her voice sounds old. She's trying to be a fake Aretha Franklin, right? All of these things that are being said by her. And I was like, no, break the windows out my car was like my ish. Like, my cold. Like, I felt like when she said her new album, come pick up your feelings. Yeah, please come pick these up. I would like you to clear all of this energy on out. So no. And what I appreciate about her is that she stayed true to who she was, right? She didn't try to, although she was in the industry, I'm not separating her from the industry pressures, right? She was just like, I can't be anything else. I got this raspy voice. I am who I am, and I sing what I sing.
Right. Yep. And in a lot of ways, the industry kind of left her out to dry. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so she sustained herself, and like life, things have its ups and downs. She sustained herself by concerts. You know what I mean?
That's the good thing about
hardcore following.
And that's to your point, Kai, about artists, right? There's a difference between artists and people who doing shit. All right.
Right.
Artists can sustain through the ebbs and flows of this business. Real artists can. Charlie Wilson hasn't had a record big as the Gap Band. And then he had Uncle Charlie, and then he have so Charlie will have a hit every decade. And his concerts ain't never waned. I'm talking about since '84, Uncle, because he's a real artist. Real artists know how to sustain through that, because no matter what people say, no matter what people pretend, they like real entertainment. And after a while, that walking back and forth, grabbing your nuts on the stage ain't gonna get it.
It's not.
But you can go to a Morris Day show right now and be entertained like it's 1984. And so people always still gravitate to that. And people like Jasmine Sullivan, people like her. People like, even, he ain't one of my favorites. People like The Weeknd. They are going to be able to entertain for a long time. I know. I don't like The Weeknd, but he knows how to put a show together, and he knows how to give a show. And that's the thing that a lot of these artists don't know how to do. Like, he know how to conceptualize a record. He know how to conceptualize the sound for a record, and then he knows how to serve that. So
because he's an artist. Right.
Yeah,
to your point, just like Kai and I are academics, right? We know how to establish a book. We know how to center a theme for a book. We know how to organize chapters to then deliver the message that we're trying to provide for a book, right? When you're an academic, right, that's the difference between having a PhD and having a master's. Is the ability, right? And this is what I try to get people to understand is that's why PhDs are being asked at a certain level to teach at the collegiate level, because there's a different expectation for what you're able to bring. You're able to build a class. You're able to take a theme, find connections in the world, find theory, use theory, and then present it. Now, people don't have to like it. To your point about The Weeknd, everybody doesn't have to like it, but there's a designated skill set to be able to do that folks with a master's don't necessarily have. Folks with a PhD like Kai and I do have. So it makes perfect sense to me.
And I also want to point out, and Dane, you already do this, but a lot of artists that have gone through and are now, gone through the whole process and are like, I would like to be more in the back, are now bringing people that they have been mentoring to the fore too. And so these companies, these music companies are respecting their expertise and what they bring. So that's what I'm also seeing that as well. One of my top 3 concerts was an Anthony Hamilton concert, right?
Oh, I love him.
And so I didn't even think I would like it because I thought it would be a snoozer. That little 5'2" man,
He is a show.
Whoa.
Well, think about it, because he comes out of the Angie Stone D'Angelo tree. So so being on that Voodoo tour as a background singer for D'Angelo, he knows what a show is. So that's, if that's the pedigree that you come from, when you get on, it was funny because a lot of people don't remember when he first got on, he was signed to So Def, which seemed like the most wrong place for him to be signed. But Jermaine Dupri figured it out, and he knew what kind of records he needed to do. And, I seen Anthony Hamilton, and when you say he gives but again, that's that old school artistry that can shine through no matter what.
Right. Yeah, I know his manager. I know his background singers, or I don't know if they're still with him because they turned themselves into the Hamiltons. But I know his background singers. I know his manager. I know a lot of people in that band. You're talking about real musicians. You're not talking about. You're talking about real musicians. You're talking about real musicianship. When they have a practice, it's a concert. I'm not talking about synthesized music and a whole bunch of layers and a whole bunch of levels of production. I'm talking about 3 mics for the background singer, a mic for him, and some band members. I'm talking about a real show. And when you're there, right? Every time he's in concert, I've traveled to go see him in concert. When you're there, it's a feeling that he gives you. You leave feeling a particular way once you've left his concert, because you're like, wait a minute, he done, let him sing Giving You the Best of Me, and then it's a whole nother feeling that you get. And that's what artists do, right? That's what academics do. When we stand in front and give a talk about our research or what we're doing or what we're passionate about, you're gonna leave feeling a different way.
I guess that's why he has roughly 8 to 12 children. So I didn't know he said he was the backup background singer for D'Angelo on the Voodoo tour, because the Voodoo tour, the D'Angelo concert, is my #1 concert. I'm telling you, I remember clearly when he jumped off that stage, child, woman, and man ran after him. So I was like, does he have on capri pants? He surely does. But so I'm glad you mentioned that musicianship is coming back. You have got to know your music, because all of this is going to fade. All of this is going to fade away. Yeah. So I guess we're old enough to know that things have cycles.